Horizon of lights. The Atlantic, vast and eternal, has always been the cradle of legends. But legends are not born from silence. They come from the sea's uncanny ability to reveal something that science cannot yet explain. In the spring of 2024, the Argo 7, an oceanographic research vessel, set out on a survey mission across the mid-Atlantic ridge. Its purpose was scientific: mapping currents, studying internal waves, and testing a new sonar array. The crew, a mix of seasoned oceanographers, marine biologists, and signal engineers, had no idea that they were about to stumble upon something no textbook had ever prepared them for. On the third night at sea, the first anomaly appeared. It began as a streak of green light, barely visible against the horizon. At first, the team assumed it was bioluminescence, the glow of plankton stirred by the swell. But this light didn't flicker randomly like the bloom of dinoflagellates. It pulsed. It lined up. Dr. Hartley, the sonar specialist, logged the observation. Bioluminescent activity detected. Unusual linear formation. Parallel patterns mimicking vessel navigation lights. Within an hour, more streaks appeared. Dozens of glowing lanes stretching across the surface like the running lights of ships, except they were silent, moving in formation, and detectable neither on radar nor sonar. The horizon itself seemed to carry a Phantom Convoy, gliding just beyond the reach of certainty. The ship's instruments reported nothing. The sea was empty. Yet, to the naked eye, the illusion was terrifyingly real. Hulks of vessels, masts fractured, rigging swaying, as if a fleet a centuries old was sailing alongside them. Some looked like Spanish galleons, others resembled rusted steel freighters. All silent, all broken. The crew debated explanations. Marine snow? Subsurface bioluminescent shoals? Electromagnetic interference refracting light along the surface? Each theory sounded plausible until one fact unsettled them. No sonar return. Not a single reflection. The water was clear. These were shadows without substance. At midnight, the radios crackled, static at first, then faint Morse code patterns emerged. Fragmented, looping, incoherent. Hartley checked the frequency. It came from nowhere, locked in a band that no station had used for over 70 years. Could be an echo from the ionosphere, one technician suggested. Old transmissions bouncing back. But the patterns repeated with chilling precision. A distress call. A fleet reporting position. The date, 1918. The Argo 7 logged the sequence, but something stranger followed. The signals weren't just repeating. They were answering. Two transmissions layered over each other, one decades old, one fresh, as if the convoy itself was calling out to anyone still listening. As the crew stood transfixed by the horizon, the sea erupted with a faint blue fire. St. Elmo's fire, a natural plasma discharge, danced across the rails of the vessel. But, unlike the usual brief glow, this storm of light bent outward, reaching toward the Phantom fleet. It was as if the ocean itself was connecting both worlds, binding flesh and ghost in a current of electricity. For the first time in their careers, the scientists fell silent. No one reached for an explanation. Because in that moment, all of them felt it. The convoy was not just a mirage. It was aware, watching, waiting. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the Phantom Convoy drifted further into the night fog, swallowed by darkness, leaving the crew with only the ghostly echo of radio static still pulsing in the headphones. The log entry for that night was simple. Unidentified lights, no radar return, radio anomaly, convoy sighting unconfirmed. But no one on the Argo 7 could deny what their eyes had seen. Into the corridor of silence. The crew of Argo 7 awoke to a restless dawn. The sea was unnervingly calm, as if the Atlantic itself was holding its breath. Captain Reyes gathered everyone in the mess hall, a printed map spread across the table, next to fresh sonar readings that made no sense. "Look at this," he muttered. The sonar had returned blank zones, stretches of ocean floor that simply vanished from the scan. no reflections, no data, as if parts of the seabed didn't exist. Dr. Elena Varga, the ship's marine physicist, frowned. That's impossible. Even a flat seabed returns echoes. It's like scanning into a void. The void stretched exactly where the Phantom Convoy had disappeared the night before. By noon, Argo 7 set course into the anomaly. The ocean remained eerily flat, its waves unnaturally synchronized like a sheet of glass. The crew whispered among themselves, superstitions clashing with science. One of the younger sailors swore he heard faint chanting carried on the wind, though no one else admitted to it aloud. At 1400 hours, the compasses began spinning wildly. GPS faltered, freezing on coordinates that placed the ship hundreds of miles inland in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Laughter nervously erupted on the deck, but it died quickly when the radio crackled to life. A distorted Morse signal bled through the static. Argo 7. It was their name, their ship. Elena's hand trembled as she translated. They're calling us. Not from this time, but from somewhere. The crew stood frozen. The radio hissed again, this time accompanied by a voice. A man's voice, hollow and fractured as if speaking through water. Turn back, before you join us. The deck lights flickered, and for a split second the horizon shimmered. Dozens of silhouettes appeared in the mist. Those same skeletal ships, sails torn, moving in perfect unison. But this time, they weren't drifting. They were circling. Panic rippled through the crew. Some demanded to retreat. Others, led by Reyes and Elena, argued this was the greatest discovery in maritime history. And then came the sound, a deep, resonant hum, vibrating through the hull. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't natural. It was a choir of voices, hundreds, maybe thousands, rising from beneath the surface. Not in song, not in language, but in warning. And yet, the Argo 7 kept moving forward, deeper into the corridor of silence where even the sea seemed afraid to breathe. The circle of the dead night descended on the Atlantic like a black curtain. The stars, usually scattered in brilliant clarity above open sea, were gone. A low fog rolled across the waves, swallowing everything beyond the bow of Argo 7. Inside the bridge, the crew watched in silence as the radar screen filled with echoes, dozens of them, ghostly blips surrounding the vessel in a perfect circle. Targets acquired, but they're not moving in or out, muttered Ensign Howard. They're holding us, Captain Reyes said grimly. Moments later, the mist parted, and the convoy revealed itself. Not one, not 10, but an entire fleet of dead ships drifting in silence. Barnacle-crusted hulls stretched like rotting skeletons. Broken masts clawed at the sky. Some ships bore designs from the 18th century. Others looked like World War convoys. Steel monsters half torn apart, all circling like vultures around the living. Dr. Elena Varga leaned against the glass, whispering, "This isn't one lost vessel. It's a graveyard, bound together." Her voice faltered. But by what? The Argo 7 drew nearer, and the radio exploded again, snatches of transmissions overlapping. Distress calls from different centuries tangled together in an endless loop. A British voice shouting about a storm in 1762. A Spanish captain begging for salvation in 1821. A military distress beacon from 1943. And then, beneath them all, came the same hollow warning. Turn back, or join the circle. Suddenly, one of the Phantom ships drifted closer, brushing against Argo 7's starboard side. Crew members on deck screamed as they glimpsed figures on its shattered deck. Shadows of men, skeletal, waterlogged, their eyes glowing faintly as if lit from within. They stood in silence, watching, never blinking. "God help us," whispered Howard. Elena grabbed the hydrophone. "They're not just echoes. They're anchored here, held in some kind of loop." "What kind of loop?" Reyes demanded. Her answer came with a trembling breath. "A time loop. The ocean has trapped them between moments. Forever." The sea began to churn. The circle of dead ships tightened, their hulls groaning as if pushed by unseen hands. The water grew colder, dense with pressure far deeper than the surface should allow. And then, for the first time, the convoy spoke. Not through radio, not through echoes, but directly. Every shadow, every drowned figure opened its mouth at once. A low, bone-shaking moan rolled across the waves, vibrating the hull of Argo 7. It wasn't rage, it wasn't sorrow, it was hunger. Panic erupted. Some crew scrambled to weapons they knew would be useless. Others prayed. Reyes shouted to maintain course, but the ocean itself was shifting. A whirlpool began forming beneath them, black as ink, dragging Argo 7 toward the center of the convoy. At its heart, where no ship dared to drift, a vast chasm yawned open in the sea, an abyss where light itself refused to exist. And from that abyss, something enormous stirred. The maw beneath the whirlpool tore open beneath Argo 7, pulling the ship toward the center. The circle of phantom vessels screamed in unison, their hulls groaning as if dragged by invisible chains. "Hold her steady," Captain Reyes shouted, though his knuckles were white on the helm. Through the spinning chaos, Dr. Varga's eyes locked on the abyss below. "It's not water," she whispered. "It's a corridor." The chasm widened, swallowing light. Sonar readings spiked, then collapsed into nonsense, depths that couldn't exist, shifting every second. From its darkness rose the silhouette of something vast, older than any vessel. A leviathan skeleton, half the size of a mountain, ascended with the whirlpool's current. But it wasn't dead. Its empty rib cage glowed faintly, and tethered to it by spectral chains were the phantom ships. The convoy wasn't drifting aimlessly. It was being dragged. Suddenly, the radios burst alive again, not with distress calls this time, but with a single voice, steady and commanding. "Another has come to the circle. Another must be bound." The crew froze. The skeletal shadows aboard the phantom ships turned their hollow gazes toward Argo 7. "They want us," Howard choked. "They want to add us to their fleet." Elena's voice cut through the panic. "No. Listen, every signal, every ship, every crew, they've been trapped here by one thing, the vortex. It's not a curse, it's a tear in time. If we can overload our core reactor, we might disrupt it, shatter the loop." "That's suicide," Reyes snapped. "Maybe, but better than drifting here forever." The ocean roared. The Phantom Convoy surged forward, their bows splitting waves as they closed in. The skeletal leviathan tilted its head, sockets blazing with deep ocean fire. Reyes clenched his jaw. "Do it." The crew scrambled. Lights on Argo 7 flickered as the engines screamed. The deck shook with unbearable heat. And then, a blinding flash erupted, splitting sea and sky. The convoy wailed, their voices tearing the night apart. The Leviathan howled as its ribcage shattered into dust. The circle collapsed, dragging ships into the abyss as the whirlpool imploded with a thunderclap. When silence finally returned, Argo 7 floated alone under a clear night sky. No fog, no voices. The ocean calm as glass. On the radar, nothing. Elena, trembling, whispered, "We broke it. Or maybe we just escaped it." Captain Reyes didn't answer. He only stared at the black water, knowing the Atlantic kept its secrets well. And somewhere below, the abyss still waited. Outro. Call to action. The story of the Phantom Convoy is just one glimpse into the terrifying mysteries our oceans may still hold. Were those ships truly lost to time? Or did Argo 7 merely survive one chapter of an endless nightmare? If you want more journeys into the Uncharted, more secrets buried beneath the waves, subscribe to Terra Uncharted, and join us as we uncover what the deep still dares to hide.